I'm going to show you how to make a simple batter that can be used for pancakes or can be used to make Yorkshire pudding. There are only a few very basic ingredients. You need to have some plain flour, you need to have some salt, you need to have some liquid, and you need to have an egg. So the recipe starts by using normal everyday plain flour and sieving that into the mixing bowl. What you're doing at that point is adding in air. You don't want self-raising flour because you don't want this particularly to rise. Next is going to have a little bit of salt, regardless of whether you're making them sweet or savoury. And then the next stage is going to be to make a hole or a well in the centre of the bowl, and into that you're going to add the egg. Next bit then is going to get the milk, to add the tiniest little bit of milk on top of the egg, and then to start whisking. Now you're whisking, if you watch carefully, just on top of the egg. All you're doing is breaking up the egg, and then gradually you will incorporate a tiny little bit of flour. So what the egg will do is obviously add some protein, and it will help the pancake to set once heat is added to the pancake mixture. The liquid then can either be milk or a mixture of milk and water, it doesn't matter which, and obviously that's going to add moisture to the mixture, but it's also going to create steam when the mixture is cooked. So you can see now I'm ending up with a thick paste. So you just gradually then add a little bit more liquid and keep mixing, and the idea is that you want to have a very smooth thin batter. And this is to make the normal everyday French, the thin crepes, rather than the American thicker fluffy sort of pancakes, which traditionally rise quite a lot when you're cooking. So you should hopefully see now that that wall of flour is very gradually picking up, and the resulting mixture is very smooth. So as it becomes a little bit more fluid, I can add a tiny bit more liquid into it, and then again keep breaking down with this wall of flour. It really takes no effort at all to do. You can do it with a wooden spoon, you don't have to have a whisk. And then as soon as all the flour is incorporated, you can then quickly pour back in the rest of the milk. There are different consistencies of batter. I'm going to make this very thin, the pouring batter. You can also get a coating batter, like as if you were going to make fritters, like apple and banana fritters. And then you can get like a panada, which is a batter that's so thick it will bind ingredients together. And that's the one that's often used in things like croquettes and fish cakes, to actually stick it together. So you can see now it's almost a liquid. I'm going now with the rest of the liquid. Now often people worry that this really is a very liquidy mixture, which it is, and that's what you want. We want to be able to cook this and for the steam to be quickly released and to end up with a nice thin pancake. So to make it easier then to pour into the frying pan later, the mixture now goes back into the same mixing jug, and then it must be left to stand. Okay, so 10 minutes is okay, 30 minutes is perfect, and in that time the gluten strands will relax and they'll also absorb a little bit of the liquid that's actually there. So I'm going to leave that now. You can chill it if you wish, or if not, just put it to one side while you get on with something else. Okay, on to cooking the pancake then. I have my non-stick frying pan, I have my spray oil. It doesn't have to be spray. You don't need a huge amount if you've actually got a reasonable pan. You're going to need a spatula of some sort, and then you're going to need your batter. Now just give your batter a stir with a fork just to make sure that it's of an even consistency all the way through, and then we're just going to wait for our pan to warm up a little bit. So the idea is that you have a hot pan and you have a cold batter. As soon as you start pouring the batter in, you need to tilt the pan, okay? And then you swirl it round so that hopefully the batter will spread across the pan quite quickly. We want a nice thin pancake, remember? That's what we're aiming for. So how do I know whether it's done or not, whether it's warm enough? What I'm going to do is to get a dribble of the batter on my fork, and I'm going to pop it into the pan. If it sizzles like mad, then it's done, it's hot enough. So I'm going to assume that that's hot enough. So I'm going to now pour in some of the batter, and I'm going to tilt it round quite quickly to fill the pan, and then I'm going to put it back onto the hob. You should hopefully be able to see that it's drying out now. That's what we want to happen. You'll have very tiny air bubbles. You can of course control the heat a little bit. And what we're aiming for is it to dry around the edges of the pan. So at this point then, you get your spatula. You loosen around the edge, pop your spatula underneath and flip it over. If you want to toss yours in the air, that's absolutely fine. A lot of people say that the first pancake is rubbish, which isn't particularly true, as long as you've got a decent pan and it's hot and it's not got too much oil in. And we're just going to leave that now for that side just to cook a tiny bit. So what's actually happened whilst we were doing that then is the high temperature has heated the liquid in the batter quickly and converted it to steam. That acts as the raising agent. It then forms a crust onto the pancake. The crust is formed by the coagulation of the proteins in the flour along with the egg and the milk, and some of the steam escapes and is replaced by the air, but some steam remains. And then we'll just have another look just so that you can see. Nicely done. Okay, I'm just going to turn my heat off for a second so I can pop mine onto the pan. Sorry, onto the plate. So I've got a plate. I'm going to sprinkle it with some sugar. I'm going to carefully lift my pancake on, and then I'm going to roll it. And there you have your perfect pancake. Now, if you don't want to eat yours immediately, you want to make a whole stack of pancakes, the idea is then that you have your one with on the plate, and then you put a sheet of greaseproof paper, and then you put your next one on top, etc., onto an oven-proof plate, and then you can actually keep them warm in a warm oven. Now, warm oven's about 100 degrees C, or round about gas mark 2 if you have gas. If I want to make another pancake now, I don't necessarily need to add any more oil. Okay. If it begins to stick, then on subsequent pancakes I can add a tiny bit more, but you actually saw how little was added. And the idea is then that you just work through your batter. The batter will keep in the fridge for a couple of days, but just make sure you cover it so you don't have to eat all of the pancake batter at once. If you're making thick pancakes, like American style pancakes, then the idea is that you have the same idea when you're cooking, but you've got a thick dough, thick batter I should say. Oil your pan in the same way, and then you're just going to put small, like tablespoons. You may only get, in the size of pan that I have, you may only get 2 actually in the pan. When they begin to set on the top and get bubbles appearing, then you flip them over and you cook the other side. Okay. Now remember, pancakes look deceptively simple to make, but they're actually quite tricky to actually get the consistency right in the pan. And also, they're quite dangerous. The pan gets incredibly hot incredibly quickly. So please make sure that you're being careful when you're handling it. Make sure somebody is around. And never then take your pan and put it onto the work surface when you've finished, or you'll end up even on a heat-proof surface with a big ring where your frying pan has been, and you won't be very popular. So leave it to cool down. Don't go and run it under the cold tap, because again it will just create a huge amount of steam, and if there was any oil left in it, it would be spitting at you, and it's just dangerous. So simply leave it. If you're finished with it, you can leave it at the back of the hob, out of the way, while you enjoy your pancakes, and you can wash it later. So that was pancakes.